Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video. Hey everyone and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be doing a review to the 11th episode of The Traitors. Now I must say, we are very close to the end of the show. So from where we last left off in episode 10, we found out that the traitors, Andrew and Harry, were either going to get rid of Jazz, Molly or Zach. Remember at this point, we did already lose Ross, so Traitor was banished at the round table the previous night, so it was just the two of Harry and Andrew left. And the way in which they survived that round table was purely just because Ross had a lot of accusations aimed at him. There was lots of weird theories about Ross potentially being a traitor. I think that's when Jasmine kind of chimed in on that and said, actually, yeah, I kind of, don't agree with some of your actions. And then even Zach at some point was like, well, actually, now you're kind of giving me even more evidence and proof that you are a traitor. And you do have to remember, Ross was recruited. So Ross did start as a faithful, but he had to reveal that he was a traitor. So, yeah, in terms of the next murdering, it was either Jazz, Molly or Zach that were going to go. And Harry basically explained that if they were not going to murder somewhere else, it wouldn't make any sense. So basically, don't recruit someone else, just get rid of someone else from the game. Evie and Jasmine were the first to get to breakfast. And Evie basically explained that Ross put a rose in his mum's coffin. Questioned Jasmine whether she thinks the traitor is actually Zach. Molly said that obviously she's so close to the final now, and she basically said that Ross's reaction to Andrew after he kind of had that little bit of disagreement, he looked affected, and she used to be set on Zach, but now she's kind of, I guess, keeping her options open, because you are very close to the end. Anyone could be playing any sort of game, so even the girls within themselves could... There could be a traitor, but obviously there isn't, but they obviously don't know that. Jasmine explained that Harry and Zach are both big targets. Harry and Zach both have targets. Molly said it would have been a loss. It would be a loss to the team if one of those was to be eliminated. She said that she was going to potentially be looking at Andrew today, and she said she was nervous before the round table. Evie explained to some of the group that she thinks it's between either Jasmine or Andrew, who probably won't be coming back. Or who potentially could be a traitor. And Molly said it depends on who leaves as to who they think the next traitor is. So I think at breakfast, Evie basically said to Jasmine's face that I think it's either you or Andrew, but obviously if Andrew doesn't come back, then it's probably not Jasmine, because there was no sort of correlation between Jasmine and Andrew, so it then could be someone that Andrew was close to. So yeah, that's what Molly said there. It kind of depends who leaves as to who then could be the next target, or who's the next kind of, the eyes are on that person because it's that person who got rid of that person. And we found out it was either going to be Andrew, Jazz or Zach that was going to be removed from the game. Obviously these were the last three to the faithful that hadn't come back. Obviously Andrew was coming back because he's a traitor. So technically either Zach or Jazz. Yeah, Molly and Jasmine basically realised that Andrew hadn't come back. And they were a little bit thrown off. And Jasmine basically explained that if Zach was to go, she'd be gutted. Unfortunately for her, Zach did go, and he was actually murdered from the game. Andrew and Harry basically explained they did a little double bluff, with people obviously thinking that it's going to be Jasmine, because obviously Jasmine had all that fire against her from Ross, and she kind of put all that fire again onto Zach, so she was kind of definitely in the firing line there. Zach explained, as he left the game, well done to the traitors. He basically said he knew his days were limited after yesterday's game, because obviously he was kind of, throwing names everywhere. And Jazz basically said that Zach was obviously a very big faithful, with Jasmine explaining that people are now going to obviously pin it on her. So we found out there were 6 people left. So you've got to remember there are 2 traitors, Harry and Andrew, and there are 4 faithful, Molly, Jasmine, Evie and Jazz. They are the final 6 contestants. So the next game, or the next mission, was called Ancient History. There's going to be lots of different questions, puzzles on something to do with it being ancient. Harry basically whispered to Andrew, let's push on Jasmine, and obviously don't crack at the round table. And I think they were trying to They were also trying to speak to Jazz and Evie separately to kind of, you know, bring them on board as well. Andrew said to Jasmine that he might have a quick chat with Molly. And then Harry, Andrew, Jazz and Evie all had a quick chat. Jazz basically explained the way Jasmine reacted to Ross was a little, obviously, a bit weird. Harry kind of, obviously, again, double bluffing, kind of wondered, well, hang on, why wouldn't you want Zach on your team? Because obviously he's a good team player. I guess here it's that thing of, obviously, and Harry has had his doubts about Zach, but he's still a good team player and he still obviously was able to make and get money into the prize pot. And Evie basically said that Ross is now potentially trying to protect Jasmine on his way out by obviously saying what he said. And then the four of them had a little game of bowls, which obviously Harry won, with Evie saying to him, "You're good at everything." And then Evie and Jasmine had a quick chat, obviously. I think they kind of both realised that they were going to both be targets based on the Ross situation, and they said that potentially both of their names and Andrew's name would be brought into the mix. Jasmine also said to Evie that Zach's theory has legs, of potentially a traitor murdering Harry, and that's why I think at this point she kind of just thought, well, I think both of the girls thought it was each other at this point, with obviously Ross being a traitor and Jasmine being a faithful. Jasmine was like, well, the only other person I could go for who potentially could have saved themselves is potentially Evie, or that she potentially could have tried to kill Harry, for example. And yeah, both the girls basically agreed that they're on the same side of the coin, I think, as Evie explained it. So they're both just as guilty in each other's eyes as they think they are, but actually they're both innocent and they just don't know that. Molly explained to Harry that she's not 100% sure who she wants in the final, with Harry saying that he trusts Molly, and Molly saying that they needed to potentially go for Andrew. Harry said that there's so much heat for Andrew at the moment, he needs to kind of remove his emotions from the situation, and potentially here he may have to throw Andrew under the bus to obviously get Andrew out and continue Harry in the game. Molly also said that she'd be happy standing at the final with Harry. So I think at this point, Harry and Molly are kind of like this. Harry's obviously a traitor, Molly's obviously a faithful, so let's see what actually happens going further forward. And then in terms of the next game, they all ended up at a place called the Ancient Place of Worship, the Traitors Monument. So there was lots of people with capes, masks and like sword-looking things standing around this monument. And they basically had to just complete puzzles to unlock the monument. They had 30 minutes and then they'd add 7,000 to the pot. So very simple. And we also found out from Claudia there'd be no shields and there'd be no murder. Evie basically explained that obviously the first challenge was them having to use hieroglyphics or kind of that sort of thing to decode weird symbols and stuff on the monument. So there was like a stone with like A is, you know, this shape, B is, you know, that shape, whatever. So Evie basically explained that when it was her turn to get the symbols, there was just lots of people mimicking like, yeah, it looks like this with the dot here and a thing there. So she just got a bit confused. And yeah, the next part of the challenge was for them to obviously resolve what that riddle was, and it said remove stars, insert poles. So on the monument there was lots of little stars. They had to take the stars off, and then the poles that the people were holding around in that little weird circle had to shove those in and then basically create what I thought was a round table but outside. Puzzle 2, again they had to solve a riddle. The answer was a dragon. I'm not going to read the riddle because it was a bit long, but basically, yeah, it was a riddle and you kind of had to work out something to do with like an animal or a shape, and Jasmine got it straight away. And then the third thing that they had to do, so the third and final puzzle, was to chant all of the players' names from the Traitors Series 2 who had obviously been murdered. So it was Aubrey, Kyra, Meg, Tracy, Diane, Charlie, and most recently Zach. Harry said that he basically thought that they'd murdered more people than that, but obviously the rest of them were just banishments. And she basically, Claudia Winkleman, told all of the contestants to stand at a point of the star. She basically said that there was going to be swords in a stone, and there was going to be one sacred sword, and that person was going to be faced with a huge decision. So again, at this point, she basically explained there's going to be no murderings, but I potentially thought she was going to say, okay, well, you now have to pick someone to get rid of from the game now. Like, or there'll be 2 banishments or something like that. There's going to be some sort of weird twist. It didn't end up being that. I'll get to that in a second. Jazz said it was a little bit scary, and then they each took it in turns to go for the sword. So Jasmine, Andrew, Molly and Jazz, none of them got the sacred sword. Evie was up next, and obviously we found out it was either going to be potentially Evie or Harry. Evie got a non-sacred sword, and it was Harry who drew the sacred sword. And there were still about 3 or 4 swords left in the stone. So potentially, if he would have chosen a different one, there would have still been the chance for someone else to get the sacred sword. So he basically had to make the decision. So the 7,000 they just won in that challenge, was he going to either take that for himself and he could continue in the game, or add that 7,000 to the prize pot? He basically said it's a definite no, with Molly basically shouting legend, and Evie saying no way would he take the money. So there was a bit of discussion, and he did have a bit of time to think about it, saying, you know, 7,000 is a lot of money, and it could help his family and friends and that sort of thing, but he was also a team player, and he also doesn't want to come across as if he's a traitor, kind of taking money from them now, and then also taking money from them later on. Claudia told Harry to keep the sword, and it's excellent for cheddar, so, you know, obviously quite sharp, which is good. And Andrew said that he was happy that Harry put the money in the pot, but again, he doesn't really trust him 100% because he's not really sure what the game plan is going forward. And Jazz also kind of looked at Harry saying, I don't trust Harry at all, will I have time to speak up at the round table? Molly said potentially if Aubrey was sitting in the monument, she wouldn't have known what to do. I think they would have got a little bit scared, because obviously it was an ancient monument, and Aubrey was obviously the first person to go, so that was, you know, ages ago. And then Harry basically whispered to Andrew saying, Jasmine's gone, I'm worried about tomorrow. And he basically said to the camera, he basically said to Andrew he doesn't want to backstab him. Andrew said, you know, he kind of gets all these vibes and, you know, things from Harry, but he's not going to let someone walk over him, and he's not going to stop playing until the final whistle. Jasmine explained to Harry and Molly that she doesn't want to get grilled at the round table, and then she said to the camera that she's competitive, she'll give back, and the only people that it potentially could be in terms of traitors were her and Evie. And Molly basically said that Evie's name also needs to be brought up. Evie said to Jazz and Andrew that we're obviously on 2 sides of the same coin, and Andrew said that he's not voting for Evie tonight. So I think this is kind of where Evie said to the 2 boys, she said, look, I think it's either me or Jasmine, we're obviously going to be going at each other. Is that the way to do it? Because I think once 2 people go at each other, the traitors can just kind of sit there with their popcorn and watch. And Evie said that she knows that Jazz and Molly are faithful, and for them to potentially look at Harry if obviously she was to go from the game. Jazz actually added, well, has anyone ever said anything about Harry before? And Andrew and Evie basically just explained, no, not yet. So, you know, Andrew has his suspicions. Jazz was about to tell them his suspicions, but managed to keep it to himself till at least the round table. And yeah, that was basically that with their conversation. And Jasmine basically said that everyone seems to be suspicious about her. Harry said he thinks he can get to the final. Evie said she's definitely not going to be safe at this round table. Andrew was a bit nervous, as there was very few of them left, and Molly explained that it's obviously getting harder and harder, and there's no risks of taking a traitor to the final. She doesn't want to be, you know, doing that. At the round table, it was Jasmine that went first. She said everyone knows Zach's theory might have legs. Evie didn't also know about Harry getting a shield, so obviously the only other person that Jasmine's going to attack at this point is then Evie. Evie asked why Jasmine was fighting with Zach over nothing, now that they've obviously found out he's a faithful, and she said that she defended his kind of ideology and his ideas about the game, but not the way in which he approached it. So he ended up putting both of these girls in a difficult position now, so he's basically screwed the game up for both of them. And Jasmine said that it's fair to know about all of the votes, especially if you're a traitor. So I'm not really sure what she means by that. It's fair to know about all the votes. Yeah, it's fair to know about the votes, yes. So obviously I think she was kind of hinting here at, like, because I think Evie basically said that every round table she voted someone, she was always voting the traitors, so she was always getting the names right. And Jasmine was like, well, yeah, obviously if you're a traitor, you know who the traitors are, you're going to vote them, go, oh, I didn't realise it was actually them, and then kind of whatever. So that's what she was saying there. And Evie actually said that she had confronted Ash before about that traitor situation, and then it ended up turning out she was a traitor. So I think they both basically said they're allowed to have their opinions. So, you know, it might not necessarily be right, or it might not necessarily be a popular opinion, but it's an opinion nonetheless. Molly explained again, so she pointed straight to Andrew, saying Ross's reaction to what Andrew said was a little bit weird, and it has actually happened twice before with obviously the other traitors. Jazz said he's not sure what Andrew has said is actually genuine or not, And Evie basically explained that Ross seemed to deflect the situation from himself to Andrew, and has he now done that to just save Jasmine? So kind of put the blame on Andrew, save Jasmine, and make her seem as if she's not actually a traitor. And Evie basically said potentially you need to break the mould and do what you need to do. And Jasmine explained that again, if you vote for her, you're going to need to have a plan B. So when it came to the votes, obviously there's only 7 of them, there's only 6 of them, so there's only 6 votes. So Andrew got a vote, Evie got a vote, Jasmine got 4 votes. She revealed she was a faithful, and she was obviously banished at the round table. And then Evie basically said, I thought she was going to say she was a traitor, I don't trust anybody. Molly explained that it was horrible, Jazz said it was exhausting, and Harry, just on a completely different wavelength, said it's getting close now. Harry said he still feels like something bad is going to happen, because I think at this point they all went to the dinner party, so it's just the 4 of them left now. Sorry, just the 5 of them left now. And Jazz basically said that he thought Claudia was just going to walk in with a bombshell, and Andrew said it's a good time for them to obviously get to know each other a little bit better. So Molly and Evie started talking first. Obviously they were the 2 girls, and they said they were both thinking that each other were traitors at the beginning, and they didn't really talk to each other, and then kind of sat as far away from each other as possible at the breakfast table and kind of looked at each other like, who the hell is that? Evie explained that she needed to be quiet and obviously be brave. Jazz explained people like this don't usually sit together like this, so it was obviously quite nice to have that experience as well. Molly then went on to say that she's been ill since she was 11, and she'd obviously raise awareness of her issue and try and do something to help herself and other people. And Harry basically added that it was nice to see Molly being confident at the table. Jazz explained that his wife came into his life at the most important time for him, and obviously he felt like a sinking ship. Obviously Andrew then explained previously he had his accident. He was kind of now trying to get out of his comfort zone because he wasn't really confident, he didn't really feel himself, and he just felt like he wasn't really motivated to do anything, and then he kind of just got a spark to get back to life. And he also said here that he's always been his worst critic, so I think that is genuinely a thing in life as well, that people are going to tell you you're doing good, people are going to tell you you look great, but you are still going to self-critique yourself, because that's just what we do as humans. I think he said he'd potentially pay for his son to visit Australia and obviously set up a business if he was to win the money. And Harry said that for himself, happiness comes from the people that are around him, so his friends, his family being happy. Working Monday to Friday is obviously fun, but I guess it's quite long, and he said he wants to try and get his own place, so at least he can obviously settle down. Claudia walked in and she basically explained that they were the finalists, they were the final 5, Molly, Evie, Harry, Andrew and Jazz. But she said there was going to be one more round table, and the banishments were going to continue until all the traitors were gone. So that's basically what they had to do, 1 banishment, and then once there were 4 of them left, you continue banishing until you're happy that you want to end the game, and then you end the game. Andrew said that he's made some good bonds, but he does need to be the winning player. Molly explained that she's nervous. It's been a really hard game and she would never forgive herself if she got a traitor through to the final. Evie said she was very nervous and potentially her head is already on the chopping block. And Jazz said we're nearly there, the game's not finished, with Harry saying it's hard and I am starting to feel bad, but what needs to be done needs to be done. So that was the end of episode 11. If you did enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. We are very, very close to actually finding out who the winner of the Traitors is. I am just about to watch it now, so if you did enjoy, don't forget to, support the channel. And until my next review, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.